富、名声、力、かつてこの世の全てを手に入れた男、海賊王、ゴールド・ロジャー。彼の死に際に放った一言は、全世界の人々を海へ駆り立てた。俺の財宝か。欲しけりゃくれてやるぜ。探してみろ。この世の全てをそこに置いてきた。世は大海賊時代を迎える。What is a treasure? Gold, silver, jewels, tangerines, or a restaurant? Your pride? Or perhaps a sword? A straw hat passed down through generations? Or perhaps the friends we meet along the way? But if we're being honest, the greatest treasure is definitely Gaimon. No competition there. Oda, right from the start, explored this question as we joined Luffy on his grand adventure. But then there's the One Piece, the greatest treasure of them all, left behind at Laugh Tale. Where is it? What is it? And just to throw a wrench in the works, are the chests empty? Let's dive into what we actually know about the One Piece so far. When the Roger Pirates reached Laugh Tale and uncovered the One Piece, they learnt everything about the world, its history, the Void Century, the D-Clan, and the ancient weapons. The Roger Pirates were the first to reach Laugh Tale and claim the One Piece since Joyboy left it there. During the Void Century, the ancient weapons were used, causing the world to sink 200 meters into the ocean. Whoever claims the One Piece and becomes Pirate King will hold the power to decide the world's fate, and once again wield the power of the ancient weapons. When the One Piece is found, the world will be flipped upside down. Whitebeard said that the ancient will has been passed down from one person to the next. One day, someone will inherit this will, carry all of history on their shoulders, and challenge the world. And the world government is terrified of this inevitable war. The One Piece in Japanese is hitotsunagi no daihihou. Daihihou meaning great hidden treasure. We know this because daihihou is written in kanji, which helps us understand what Oda meant by it. Hitotsunagi, on the other hand, isn't written in kanji, which leaves us unsure of its exact meaning. In the West, it's often interpreted as one can't see, or the rope linking all men. However, it's more accurate to translate this as that which ties people together. It's actually unclear whether this great hidden treasure will unite people by tying them, or shackle them by tying them. I suppose it's like the multiple interpretations of Nika in Elbaf. Now, this video is part 3 of a 5-part series exploring the mysteries of the One Piece treasure. If you haven't watched the previous videos, well, I'm not quite sure what you're doing here, but welcome anyway. Previously, I argued that the One Piece will be housed in a Temple of the Sun, designed as a lunar solar calendar, a temple dedicated to the winter solstice, the summer solstice, and the sun and moon. As I mentioned before, temple in Japanese is tera. If we look at how Laugh Tale is written in katakana as lafuteru, it's an anagram for furutera, which translates to old temple or a temple in which it falls. Furu is often used to describe things like rain or snow that falls from above. Here's my prediction. If this anagram was intentional by Oda, it could refer to a temple where you cry, since furu can poetically describe tears falling. After all, the Roger Pirates didn't just laugh, they also cried. Now then, the moment of truth. What is the One Piece? The One Piece is kept in a Temple of the Sun, and it's a treasure made up of 5 key elements: the sun, rain, forest, earth, and time. The first 4 elements, sun, rain, forest, and earth, are all gods referenced in the Jaya flashback with the Shandians. I really think this flashback and the Skypiea arc as a whole holds a ton of clues about what the One Piece actually is. Keep that in mind. Let's start with the element of earth. This part of the treasure will be a grave. In Skypiea, will you come across the Verth statues? What if these statues were hollow, containing earth, or even better, what if the Verth statues are actually urns holding people's ashes? In Binksasake, there's actually a line that says, "Doesn't matter who you are, someday you'll just be bones." There's also a subtle panel in the Jaya flashback where the villagers mention kotsubo, literally bone vase, meaning cremation urn. Vase, vase, or Varth. Even the Stonehenge, which I based sections of this mega theory on, is speculated as having been a burial site. So the element of earth in One Piece represents a grave. More specifically, I believe it will be the grave of a D. And what do you offer at a grave? Generally speaking, flowers are the common offering, which we've seen multiple times throughout the story. But what else? Whether it's the Sakazuki cups at Ace and Whitebeard's grave, Genzo at Belmere's grave, or Zoro and Wano offering sake at Yasuie and Pedro's graves. Sake is often offered at graves. As a community, we've assumed that Binks' sake would somehow tie into the One Piece. Well, sake is a perfect match for a grave. In chapter 434, Shanks offered Whitebeard sake from the West Blue, claiming that the sake made from the water there is the best. So sake connects to water and by extension, to rain. A bottle of Binks' sake will be offered and drunk at the grave of the D. This is the second component of the One Piece treasure, symbolizing rain. Rain would also tie into the anagram of Luffy, meaning a temple in which it falls. As Rayleigh said, when Roger died, he had never laughed more than that night, never cried more than that night, and never drunk more than that night. The next element is the forest. If we turn to the Jaya arc for inspiration, what were the two key forests there? The first forest was the one where the Straw Hats went to catch a Southbird. Well, the name of the forest was South, wait for it, Grave, South Grave. The second forest in Jaya that was featured were the Miyorigi trees, literally meaning entanglement trees. They were translated as relative trees in English, and these were the sacred trees that held the souls of ancestors who were guided to the forest by the sound of the great belfry bell. So, in Jaya, we had a forest of graves and a forest of ancestors. In Laugh Tale, there will be a forest of souls surrounding the Temple of the Sun and the grave. Now, let's move on to the next element of the One Piece treasure. Time. In a way, time is already represented by the Temple of the Sun. As I mentioned earlier, it's likely a lunar solar calendar. But let me add another aspect of time into the mix. An object introduced in, well, you guessed it, the Skypiea arc. I told you I'd be talking about this arc a lot. Now, have you guessed what object I'm talking about? Yes, the dial. Why do you think these powered shells found on Sky Islands were given this name by Oda? Well, you see, sun dials were an ancient timekeeping device. And a dial also refers to the face of an analog clock or a compass. And to dial is when you call someone on a rotary phone using a rotary dial. Because what do you do when you visit a grave? You offer flowers, drink sake, and you talk to the dead. So, time will also be represented by a dial that allows Luffy and his crew to talk to the dead. More specifically, they'll talk to Joyboy from the Void Century in the past. After all, Vegapunk stated that Roger must have heard the voice from the past, from the purest source possible. So what if it was literally from the horse's mouth, from Joyboy himself over a dial? Now, am I saying that there will be a dial that can call people of the past? Maybe. An alternative is an idea that I brought up in my very first video. What if Joyboy had such advanced future sight that he could have a conversation with people from the future through a simple tone dial like the one Brook used? So the whole history of the world, the mysteries of the D-Clan, the Void Century, and the ancient weapons will be revealed to us by Joyboy himself. Like the shanty Binks' sake, it will be an oral history, but in its simplest form, as a tale. Guys, I cannot wait for this flashback. So, a dial that allows us to connect with those of the past, a conversation transcending time with the greatest D of all time, Joyboy. And side note, now we have a gravestone of a D. Well, the will of D in Japanese is D no Ishi, which phonetically means the stone of D. So, the inherited will of the D passed on to us through the gravestone of a D? Yeah, why not? When we consider the half-moon people in the mural, who likely referred to the D-Clan, we have a link to Dressrosa. Diamante used an attack called Half Moon Grave in the Sunflower Field by Scarlet's Grave. Now, a dial that allows us to communicate with Joyboy to hear about his era and his amazing adventures? That in itself would be a grand treasure and a great reason to call the island Laugh Tale. But is that the One Piece? Well, no, because Oda's already told us as much. We know we'll learn about the history of the whole world from the purest source, and it will be in the form of a tale or a story, because it's literally in the name of the island. So a story, regardless of how we get it, can't be all there is to the One Piece treasure, since it's already all but confirmed. Oda's not going to tell us outright until we're at Laugh Tale. So fine, what is the One Piece Senkuso? Well, let's discuss the final piece of the puzzle, the element of the sun. The sun, of course, like the Kashigami of the Shandians, the sun god of Nika, Joyboy and Luffy. Now unfortunately, this isn't as big of a reveal anymore because of the 1138 mural, but Straw Hat Lucas and I were still stoked when we read that chapter because we knew we were on the right path. But whatever, here's the reveal. The sun element of the Temple of the Sun is the most important part of the One Piece, and it will be a highly advanced power source. A contained sphere of nuclear fusion, like a miniature sun suspended in a reactor. So the element of sun of the One Piece treasure will be a literal miniature sun. Now, this shouldn't be a shock to anyone since we already have Vegapunk's Mother Flame, which is basically this world's version of a nuclear fission reactor. Vegapunk himself said the Mother Flame is incomplete as an eternal energy source. The Forbidden Sun mentioned in the Harley text must therefore be the complete version of the Mother Flame invented by a more advanced civilization, and also likely to be a cleaner, more powerful reactor using nuclear fusion rather than fission. And this Forbidden Sun is where the decision comes into play. You see, I believe that this power source is currently contained inside a box of some kind, and that the Roger Pirates chose not to open it. As Rayleigh said to the Straw Hats on Sabaody, the answer you come to may be different from ours. But what basis do I have to make such a wild claim? Well, because of Pandora's box. We know that whoever claims the One Piece will have the power to activate the ancient weapons. So naturally, it must include a power source to activate the technology behind them. Makes sense since Imu and the Gorosei used the Mother Flame as a test on Lelouch to activate one of the ancient weapons. They clearly needed to test if the ancient weapons are able to be activated by an inferior version of the Forbidden Sun used during the Void Century. But on the other hand, we also know that Vegapunk's dream is to provide free, unlimited energy to the whole world, and to make every country a prosperous and abundant place. So therein lies the decision. Should they open the box and unleash the power source which could either make the world prosperous or destroy it? The double-edged nature of technology that is far too great, hence Pandora's box. And the clue that the One Piece will be the Forbidden Sun inside of a box? The name of Mother Carmel's sun-shaped homie was Pandora. So, will Luffy decide to open it when he's faced with that decision? Yes, without question. Like, is that even debatable? He's literally already done that. That's exactly how Luffy got his sun god abilities. He was at a bar, saw a chest, opened it, and ate the bloody sun fruit inside without a moment of hesitation. And yeah, Luffy will eat the forbidden sun too, like how he ate the Nika fruit. After all, Luffy is based on Hanuman, the monkey god who ate the sun, thinking it was food. We got further clues of this on Egghead recently, when he also ate Kizaru's light abilities. Well, Kizaru's ability in Japanese references stars, so Luffy ate another star. Now, as much as eating the One Piece would be a classic Luffy move, why would it matter to the story? Well, it's because if Luffy with the Sun God ability fuses with the Forbidden Sun, he may be able to reset the whole world to zero. In chapter 644 during the Fishman Island arc, Fukaboshi pleaded with Luffy to set their country to zero, liberating them from their history. So a country reset to zero by Luffy. The moment Drum Kingdom was reborn as Sakura Kingdom, it was also precisely 0 o'clock, the witching hour, when Luffy died and was reborn as Joyboy in his Gear 5 form. His heart started beating to the drums of liberation. This was paralleled beautifully in Drum Kingdom. There were multiple dons from the cannons fired into the sky, creating the Sakura trees that mark the kingdom's rebirth. So Luffy will reset the world to zero, which will bring about a new dawn. How, you may ask? Well, that's a billion-berry question, but a question for the next video in the series. Chapter 1114, fittingly titled The Wings of Icarus, is where we see the Mother Flame. Like Icarus, who flew too close to the sun and fell to his death, Vegapunk's demise also came from reaching too close to the sun. According to Yarul, the world of One Piece has already been destroyed twice. So civilizations in the past that became too advanced has also been reset. The 1138 mural stated that the ocean god became turbulent. Natural calamity or divine retribution blamed for the flooding of the world. However, Vegapunk claimed this was actually the work of the ancient weapons. So, the gods were blamed for destruction that was actually caused by technology. Now, who was behind it? Well, that's obvious. Imu and the Gorosei admitted as much in chapter 908, when Nasujiro said, "The time has come for a great cleansing." Imu has been resetting the world whenever they deemed that civilization had advanced too far, and when they deemed that people were getting too close to the sun. Like I said in the first video of the series, Imu is a jealous god of the geocentric model. When civilization tries to advance to the heliocentric model, Imu resets the world to remain the god of it. Let's bring this whole thing back to the 5 elements of the One Piece treasure on Laugh Tale. Sun, rain, forest, earth, and time translate to the Forbidden Sun, the grave of a D, Bingsu Sake, a forest of souls, and a dial that lets you talk to someone from the past. These treasures are housed in and around the Temple of the Sun, which measures time. 5 treasures just like the 5 atop the large rock that Gaimon was trying to claim. But wait, wasn't Gaimon's treasures empty? Does that mean the One Piece will be empty too? Probably not, since Roger left the treasure there, and he and his crew were the last ones to reach it supposedly. However, I do think that the Forbidden Sun will be stolen. But hold on, technically, there was a 6th treasure box, the one Gaimon got stuck in. Considering the 6 treasure boxes that were also in God Valley, surely there's meant to be 6 treasures, not 5. Yeah, look, there will be, don't lose your head. There's definitely a 6th treasure beyond Laugh Tale that ties into the decision I talked about. I'll cover it in the final video of the series. In the meantime, comment below if you think you've figured out what the 6th treasure is. Honestly, at this point I think you can. But finally, my claim is that the main treasure of the One Piece is the Forbidden Sun. Well, amongst its various interpretations, hitotsunagi no daihihou could also mean the great treasure that connects to the sun. And if it's written entirely in hiragana, it could mean the great sun treasure tying people together. Trust me, You won't want to miss what comes next.